Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christine Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership.
Steve, how are you doing today?
Good, Christine. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am good. It is currently the middle of March. I feel like this year has moved by quickly, which who loves January and February? It's kind of, usually cold and snowy or rainy. So I'm kind of glad we're heading into spring here, getting some sunshine.
It definitely feels like spring here in Connecticut. The grass is greening up. We've had a very warm winter. So my crew is all in. My whole team is preparing to go out later this week. So spring showed up early and we're ready.
Very nice. Yeah, I love watching your team get ready and get out in the field. They're very orchestrated in starting their day. So it's a nice thing to kind of stand back and watch the production gear up and they move out.
They are very orchestrated. It's something to watch. Yeah, they're very efficient in getting out. And I know in the landscape industry, that's a big issue is the morning circus, they call it, getting crews out. And we really pride ourselves on the efficiency of getting our crews out quickly and efficiently. Fully loaded so they don't have to come back and get extra stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed too is they're happy, they're excited and energized to start their day. So that was something else that I observed when I was out there is how energized and excited your team is. Nobody looked like, oh man, I got to start work. So they were geared up and ready to go.
Yeah. And I think having that efficiency in the organization really reduces stress. So, people know that they're set for the day. They have all the material they need, all the tools they need, all the information they need. They know what the expectation is for the day. And it's really a good way to start the day.
Well, I'm excited to talk today about our topic on the podcast. I know it's one of your favorite topics. So in today's episode, we're going to explore the power of leading from your strengths, utilizing CliftonStrengths. And today we're going to dive into the transformational power of CliftonStrengths in the workplace and discover how this revolutionary tool is reshaping company cultures, boosting productivity, and enhancing team dynamics. And Steve is a certified CliftonStrengths coach, which I have to tell you, anybody in his circle has highly benefited from because we are all learning and growing in our strengths. So, and then I'd like everybody to kind of, stay tuned because we are going to have a special offer at the end of this podcast. So be sure to listen all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics, CliftonStrengths, Gallup's CliftonStrengths. This Clifton Strength assessment that they provide is a tool to help people live their very best lives in their full strengths. And this assessment has been given over 35 million people in over 100 different countries. And, different countries actually have different strength profiles, which is really interesting. And I have high individualism. It's in my top 5, which is one of the things that really attracts me to finding more out about other people and what is awesome about them and what's unique and really enjoy their strengths and talents. And one of the things that we were introduced to CliftonStrengths. We did an assessment. We did it through a retreat. And, we were finding things out about each other and we're going, oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that's why that gives me so much energy when I'm doing that. Okay, that's why that drains my energy because it's not my top 10 strengths. So one of the things that happened for years in education systems, and they just didn't know better, was if you were not good in a subject, like let's say you were not good in math or you're not good in reading, they would say, oh, you really have to work on that. You have to spend all your time improving all your weaknesses. And Dr. Clifton, he did 30 years of research out in Nebraska, and he found people are 6 times better to actually focus on their strengths where they're already excelling at than try to fix their weaknesses. So he developed an assessment, the Clifton Strength Test or assessment, to determine, where we live with our talent themes and our strengths.
Yeah, and I absolutely love this topic because in all the years that I've been working on the business, and then Steve, you and I have been, working on our businesses and sharing our challenges and struggles, and just in our groups that we have professionally and talking about our problems, is one of the hardest things is to have a team, right? It's like business is easy. You think it's hard when it's just you, and then you get a team and you're like, this is going to make it so much easier. And then you get the team and you're like, this is so much harder. And I know I struggled with that. I had a couple goes at it and, came out battered and bruised, from trying to be that leader and have a team. And what I realize now, every time I talk to a group of business owners, is the Clifton Strengths and leading with your strengths culture base that I have learned over the years. It has completely changed my approach in leadership. And it has completely changed how I show up as leader, how I connect with my people. It's changed the culture in my company. And it's made it easy. And I hear all these problems and I'm like, ooh, that sounds bad. And ooh, like, yeah, that sucks. And then I think, wow, we don't have that problem. And every time I think that, it leads back to the strengths-based culture that we have built in my company. And I am like so thankful for it. So I'm excited for us to talk about this today and share it because it has relieved so many pain points. I'm sure not just for myself, but for my team who has to work with me, to where we work together just more cohesively. We have a better understanding of each other, and we don't have the typical problems, that can completely derail a team and even the production in a company. And it all comes back to this Clifton Strengths-based leadership.
It really does. The Clifton Strength-based leadership, once we know people's talent themes and their strengths, we can start aligning them and aiming those talents and strengths. Many times I've heard from owners, if I could just find people that think like me, if I could find someone that is like another me. And the challenge is that if you are the owner of the business and you're the visionary and you're an implementer, you're that person in that group. And one of the things I've tried to, when I work with people, really trying to get them to understand, they're like, why can't people think like me in this circle? Why can't my team think like me? Because you're the person that thinks like that. The group is counting on you to live in your strengths and lead with those strengths that way. They have their own talents and their own strengths, but in that group, you're that person. So it's very interesting. It can take people from a point of frustration, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's in a nonprofit, whether it's a group of friends. They're like, why can't people be more like this? Because you're that person. You're the leader of that strength in that group. And these other people have these other talents and strengths. So that's one of the challenges as leaders and managers. Like if we're coaching people from our strengths, like they just don't get it. They can't do it. And I've been guilty before. I had the Clifton Strength background. Was I was coaching people from my strengths. I would do it this way. I do it this way. The challenge is they have their own talent themes and strengths. So if you allow their talent themes and strengths to come up to achieve the goal, they might do it a different way. They might actually do it better because they're going to be operating in their strengths and natural talents. But the whole thing is we want to achieve the goals, the KPIs, the mission. We want to support that. So sometimes it's not how we get there. It's that we get there, on time, on budget, on quality. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And I've seen, this is part of what has changed, right? Is I have people on my team that do things really well. And then I'm like, ooh, I really love that person. I love this team member. They do this really well, and I don't have to do it. And what's that is telling me is they have this strength that I don't have. And they have this passion and this love, to do those types of things that I don't have. And that makes me very happy. So if I had somebody like me on the team, we would both be hating that task or that duty, and there'd be nobody there to pick it up. So it has definitely helped close the gaps in the business and us recognize, oh, well, this is a challenge in this area. Why are we having this challenge? And we look at the individual strengths and it just makes sense. It's either we need to coach and help them kind of enhance that strength, right? Mature that strength, as you call it, or it is just not their strength. And, but then our expectations change. We know they are not the champion of this. So we need to look and say, well, who is that champion? And we can then give it to that person.
Yeah, it can be very frustrating if we don't either know or we're not aiming people's strengths, natural talents. So there's 4 themes when you take your assessment, you're going to get there's 1 through 34 of your themes, and a strength is developed from your theme talent that you have, plus skills and knowledge and experience. That's how strengths are developed. So you can have somebody who has the same or similar theme strengths, but because of their knowledge, skills, and talent, it's going to develop differently. So there's 4 different themes. There's relationship. There is executing, which is doing. Relationship is people. And then there's the executing is the doing. There's influence. And then there's strategic thinking. So there's 4 different themes that people are going to have, dominant themes. So if you have someone who's high influencing theme and not executing, getting them to follow through and doing lots of tasks is very difficult for them because it's not a natural thing. And if you have someone who has high executing, they might not have the relationship building. So their empathy and their relator might be lower, or they're just not going to have the same kind of relationship with people as high executing. The executing is getting things done. So the getting it done is the most important part. And also the strategic thinking, which if you have someone who is strategic thinking theme, for people, they need more time. So they're not going to be the quick answer person. They need to think things over, that deliberative, that discipline. They need really that strategic. They need some time to really process information and go ahead before they give an answer. So just having that, where a high influence person is most likely going to give the answer very quickly, but they might have to go back and investigate that, but they're going to answer quick and then go back and then come back again. Where the high strategic thinking person is just going to research and then come with the answer. So you have to just understand who's on your team. There are some things that need a quick answer. There are some things that need time and research.
Yeah, and then you get the combination of the themes. And I can't help but think, as you're describing these people, that the combos that come into like a high executing, high strategic person, they're going to find the right answer pretty quickly because they're high executing, and strategics, they see all the gaps. They're at the end when somebody's still unpacking step number 1. But since they're high executing, they're already checking off the lists and all the opportunities and thinking through them very quickly, but then if you have somebody, let's say that's high strategic, but then, the relationship side, it's going to be a slower paced process of thinking through. So it's interesting how these themes that you're talking about, they influence each other. And some people will have quite a lot of one, or they'll have kind of like this mixed bag, and how they show up. You're just like, okay, I can't really put this person in strategic. They might have a little bit of that. There is some little peopling in there. But maybe it's influencing. So once you start identifying these themes and how they show up, you start understanding a little bit more and trying to understand the people around you a little bit more, as well as yourself. So it's, for me, I like this kind of stuff to where it makes sense, to where I can figure it out. And I'm like, okay, I can't expect something different of this person because they are high influencing and they are, relationship. So they're not going to be going and doing this task list that I'm like, go do all this stuff. And they're like, I'm doing my stuff, but their stuff is connecting with people and influencing people, not the 100, line item task list of check, check, check.
Right. And understanding each other's strengths assessment and natural talent themes is so important in relationships. I've had everyone in my, all my friends, everybody at work, everybody on my team has taken the CliftonStrengths assessment. All my friends have. So it just helps us to understand how to respect each other and support each other, both in at work and outside of work, family, friends. It just makes it like my wife. So I learned she has high input and learner, which she wants to know information and collect information. But I'm like, why does she have to ask so many questions about everything all the time? And once I learned that her learner and input were in her top 5, now I know if I'm going to talk to her about something, I need to show up with more information right away, or at least have access or a way to find out additional information, because just a little nugget of information is not going to be enough for her. Because she also has high strategic. And like you said, strategics see the gaps, right? They see what's missing. Strategics see what's wrong. So why is that helpful? 5,000 years ago, the strategics in your tribe of, Cro-Magnon man, they were the ones that kept the group alive, because they're like, something's wrong over there. Why is that branch broken? Or why is this wrong? They're the ones that see the little details of when things are wrong, which, can come across as kind of like negative sometimes. But if you understand that that's how they're bringing value and respect that and support that, it's powerful to have those high strategics on your team. I had my roof at my shop redone. They put a new roof on it, and me and my wife were coming up to the shop, and I pulled into the shop. I was doing about 35 miles an hour because we're on a very busy road. Whip into the office. It was a Sunday. Nobody was here. And she's like, there's a loose shingle on top of the roof. And it was the first time she had seen it. And she could see going 35 miles an hour from 150 feet away, a loose shingle on the roof. And when the roof guy came to fix it, he couldn't find it. He was on the roof, and I had to point it out to him. So strategics have an innate ability to find out what's wrong, see the gaps, so they can be a really powerful part of the team. But you have to respect that and understand they're not being negative. They're actually, it's really vital to your group to have a strategic.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have several people on our team that have strategic in their top 5. But we all show up differently, right? Because it's like we have different themes that you're talking about that we have a little bit more than the other, and we have different strengths that also influence those. And we have heard several times, Steve, going to professional events and talking to other entrepreneurs where they're talking about, challenges of managing people, challenges of hiring, challenges of, well, this person, I just need the right person on my team, or when are we going to hire the right person? And over the years, you and I have even had conversations because I have the accounting company, and I was concerned about the accountants that we are hiring, wondering, are they going to be able to do this job? Because there's different types of accounting and different expectations we have. And we've even looked at people's strengths together. And what we found was there are some of the accountants and bookkeepers that we hired that were going to be really great at just maintenance, right? Just maintaining the client and making sure their books are up to date and, communicating with that client. And then there's other ones that we had that were going to be horrible at it. And you're like, this person's never going to be that. I'm going to maintain this person's books. They want change. They want to find the problems. They want to fix things. So they were more of a high-end advisory role. And also what we do, when we clean up books, we do what we call a renovation. So we restructure the chart of accounts. We make sure everything's categorized properly. And that was like that person. And so then it made sense to me where I was like, oh, well, no wonder why they're struggling so hard in the day-to-day, just maintaining the client. They need more of this. So it gave us insight that we had really good hires. We were just putting them in the wrong role and giving them the wrong tasks. And since we learned that and we were able to give people the tasks that they were really good at, we can divide up the work properly and everybody's happy and they're highly productive.
Yeah, and it's key to understand all of that. Like for us, 8 out of our 10 lawn techs are executing, right? So they go do stuff. They love the list. Give me the list. And just getting a list and going out and do that really feeds that natural talent theme. And then we have 2 that are relationship dominated. And, they talk to customers more. They have, one of the high relationship lawn techs, he's the one that gets Christmas cards, Christmas presents. People really enjoy him. So we try to send him back to the same houses over and over because they know he's coming and they really will. So those, routes also have higher. So you're like, well, he's spending a lot of time doing that. But they have those 2, the high relationship lawn techs, they have the lowest cancel rates on their routes. They have the lowest service calls, the highest retention. So there's value add built in that because they're building relationships past just the doing. But when we do our CliftonStrengths workshops at my company, the high executings really appreciate the 2 relationships because they look at things completely different. So it just gives them a different perspective. It allows people to see very differently. And so it's important to be aware, and there's no bad themes. There's no bad talents, right? They're not weak strengths. They're just lesser than. So we just have our dominant, and there's also going to be things that we have to do in our strengths. Those are 80%. If we can get to 80% of the time, that's called our cheers. And if we have to, when we're doing things that are out of our top 10 or 15 strengths, that's called chores. We have to do certain things. I have high influencing, low task, but there's still tasks, things that I have to complete in my life to make things roll. It drains my energy, but I just do it. It's called chore. Can't live 100% in your energy, in your strengths, but just knowing. So when we go from managing people to managing strengths, it's a whole different conversation. A number of times I will hear my managers in the other room. They're like, okay, let's pull up his Gallup strength assessment and let's see how we're going to support him and how we're going to communicate to that person. We have one of our lawn techs. His self-assurance is number 34. It's the lowest. So every day he starts the day out with, there's no way I can get all this done. There's just no way I can do this list. And every day he finishes it. But because his natural talent themes, the self-assurance, I can do it. I got this. So we support him. So we show up with the self-assurance to reassure him instead of going, what's wrong with you? You can do it. Why do you say this every day? We just know he's going to lean into that because it's not a natural talent theme for him.
Yeah. It's like, it's kind of sounds like the Eeyore, right? To where it's like, why bother, and how to support that team member because they're engaged and they have buy-in, but there's that self-doubt that shows up. And it really has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the task at hand. It's all that internal reflection. And, which is another part of leadership is knowing, what is this communication serving or this narrative? And does it really have to do with me or anything on the table? And how much is it of the individual? And that's what I love about the strengths is it really directs everything back towards the individual. And we can understand then how does this person need to be supported in this moment? And what can we do? And that's one of the things that I know Marcus Buckingham worked a lot with Don Clifton. He was his mentor. And he continued his work, that he had been working on. And he had written a book, I want to say it came out about 2 years ago, called Love and Work. And he talks about the 3 things that people need. And they need to be seen, they need to be heard, and they need to be supported. And it dials right in with the CliftonStrengths because when you lead with strengths, you are seeing people, you are hearing people, and you are supporting them.
And it makes running a company way easier when you allow people's natural talent themes and strengths. You see them, you hear them, and you support them, than having I'm not a big believer in brush stroking anything, but if you have policies and procedures in your company that are just brush stroke for everyone, it's going to go against certain natural talent themes and it's going to support others. So really the idea is, how do we support all the talent themes? There's, 4 themes, domains. So how do we support each one of those? Because they're going to be there, in your company. You're just going to have a group of executors. You're going to have some strategic thinkers. You're going to have some influencers. You're going to have some relationship people. So instead of looking, what's wrong with them? How do we fix them? The new kind of way of looking at it is, how do we really plug into and honor their natural theme talents to support our mission and purpose and vision at the company? How do we allow that? So it's way easier, and you'll hear people who have really successful businesses. They're like, it was really about building a team. And what they're really saying is it's really about finding people who have different strengths and talents and supporting and honoring those, seeing them, hearing them, and supporting them. And that's the fastest and most efficient way to grow a company. And when I hear, owners, and it's tough, right? I have to do everything. I have to go around and follow everybody around. And if it wasn't for me, this doesn't get done, that doesn't get done. And really what they're saying is, I haven't found a way yet of plugging my team's natural talents into my mission, vision, and purpose of the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also the coaching aspect, right? And that I hear this often is, and we even work with entrepreneurs to where they have trouble, they struggle having tough conversations, right? And tough conversations are not for everybody, but it's like, does it need to be tough? Right? That's kind of the question I ask. Does this really need to be tough? How can we change that perspective? And we have even role played through some tough conversations with people that we support and coach. And I've had to be, supported with role playing through some of those as well. Is how can we make this conversation better? So I feel like the strengths, approaching it from the strengths coaching approach, is more focused on, okay, what are the things that you're doing that are really energizing you right now? Okay, tell me more about that. What are the things that are taking away from you feeling energized and that are exhausting you? Tell me more about that. And then knowing what strengths this person has, you can come to a positive resolution. And there might be things that, as their leader or manager, you're completely unaware of that this person is doing because they think it's the right thing to do, and it really does not serve their role, or someone else should be doing it completely. So it's coming into, it's like everybody has the best intentions, but what are their strengths not serving? So it's not about the problem, it's about the solution.
Absolutely. And so we have 2 people in my company that spend a lot of time on the phones, right? So have you ever walked into a business and we had a hardware store. You'd have to chase the people around to get them to wait on you. They were obviously not in the right role, right? And now they've changed the management. Now you walk in, they welcome you. They're very helpful. And, so the 2 people that we have on the phones the most at my company, they both have woo, which is winning others over. They have high communication, positivity, adaptability. So those strengths are perfect for being on the phone. They love to talk to people. They have a cheery, bubbly, smile on the phone. You can hear them smiling over the phone somehow. People love to call up and talk to them, and they do such a great job. But it's plugging into those natural talent themes. If I had somebody on the phone who needed a job, or I hired them and they did not have the high communication, positivity, woo, adaptability, it would be so exhausting. They would go home every day from work completely exhausted because they had to talk to so many people. And, the thing about answering the phone for businesses, a lot of times if a customer is upset or confused about something, whoever picks the phone up first gets the first blast of whatever, right?
Mm.
Good or bad. And it can be really exhausting if it's bad. But it can also be, take energy if it's, good, just because you have to listen and you have to, have a good intentional conversation. But if you have people that are in their strengths, it aligns perfectly. They don't dread coming to work. They come to work with smiles. Same thing with executing. So like you earlier, Christine, you were referring to my team going out and doing their job, and they're happy about it. It's because we had everything lined up. They get to see their list. They get to see what they're going to do. Their tools are laid out for them. Everything is clear. That just feeds an executing theme, strength person. So it plugs into their natural talents and themes. So it's just really like how we manage our company, how we manage our clients. We can manage them with the strengths. So how do we move people around our company, right? We can have them take the strengths assessment and see what they should be doing in the company and, what they're not good at. And when we give the strengths assessment to other companies and we review it with them, they're like, oh, that makes sense. I'm having that person do all this task stuff and they are all relationship influencing. So let's move them in that role.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro. Yeah, and I think identifying what their strengths are helps you better understand what role they should be in. And I'll just share an example. I have had somebody working with me for many years, and we're both high strategic. We have some, a couple of our top 5 are the same, but there's like 2 that are the same and the rest are different. But strategic is it's in the same place. So her and I are very good at handling lots of tasks. We kind of like throw fireballs back and forth at each other where we're like, we need this now, do this. Okay, I'm going to go do this. And we work very well. We're highly productive together. But then at the same time, working together, we influence each other to be very reactive versus responsive because of that high strategic and executing themes that we have. So once we started growing our team and other people started kind of working with me and working with her, we realized we don't work well together with others, right? Her and I together work very well, but then we're working in our own silo. So then we had to identify and change how we were working in order for other people to come into the fold and be productive. And we still, when we're working one-on-one, we'll still do the little fireball action back and forth because it gives us energy. But we have changed how reactive we are to our workflow and coordinating with other people, because the other people that sat down at the table, they couldn't handle it. They could not handle the chaos, the lack of coordination, not knowing where things were, how fast we were moving. There was a lot of things, but we had to become aware of that and change that as our team grew, or we weren't going to grow because we needed those other people on our team.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know we're talking a lot about strategics, but there's 34 talent themes. But after I took my assessment and I had my wife, my friends, my family, my partners, my business managers, I had inadvertently, unknowingly to me, surrounded myself with high strategics. My wife, good friends, best friends, business partners, operation manager, were all high strategics because I don't have high strategic. So I was counting on them to see what was wrong in coming up. So what's nice about strategics, not only do they point out what's wrong, they also have 3 different ways of solving it. So they're not just, hey, this is wrong. They're like, hey, this is wrong, and these are 3 possibilities that could be achieved. So you have to, if you start getting coached in CliftonStrengths, you'll see, how your life developed in a natural kind of path and who's on your team. I know there are some competitive business owners who also have people who have high competition on their team. And in Gallup, CliftonStrengths, Gallup is, they have different kind of like vocabulary for different words. So competition is really the comparison strength. So it could be you comparing yourself against other people, you comparing yourself against yourself, you comparing this year versus last year, last month versus last month, whatever it is. But high competition is always comparing where I am. They're the ones that if the GPS says it's an hour and 20 minutes, they're going to do an hour and 10 minutes. They're always just trying to compare themselves to a standard or a set mark or some type of measurement. They love KPIs. They love benchmarking. They love reports. So that's one of the things you have to respect for the high competition. Sometimes they just want to beat themselves. It's not all about beating other people. They just want to be making improvements and moving forward.
Yeah. And I know too from our team, because we've been sharing and learning about CliftonStrengths, and everybody does their assessment, once through their onboarding process at a certain point. And then we share it and we talk about our strengths and how they show up. That has given us so much more insight in understanding each other. And my team is completely remote. We've always been remote. Like we were remote before remote was even a thing. And people would always ask me like, how do you feel successful having a remote team? What have you used to support having a remote team? And I would say the CliftonStrengths has really supported that because people get their strengths assessment. And then we come together and we talk about those strengths. And we have team members that have the same strengths. But when they talk about it and they share it with the other, team during a team huddle, or we have what we call learning huddles, they're understanding the person at a different level. And they're seeing like, my communication strength, even in the same position as number 5, shows up different than somebody else's communication strength on our team that also has it in position number 5. So they're seeing some similarities, but then they're also seeing differences in how the strengths show up for different people. And it allows them to connect and understand each other. And there was a point as well where I was the only one who had met most of my team in person. And there are so many people who hadn't met yet in person until over the last year. And we all got together and met in person. But the degree that they connected with each other and understood each other was so much deeper, even though they had never met in person. And it was because they were sharing their strengths, talking about their strengths, and connecting with each other and how they work best with each other at work. So it was just a completely different dynamic and culture, how these people were so connected. And you would think that they had been friends, for years, hanging out and talking and, connecting and laughing and sharing things when they had never even met in person.
Yeah, it's wild. So, you're about 1 in 850,000 people will match up with the same exact CliftonStrengths assessment, right? So you're 1 in 850,000, but there's also 2 levels of our strength development. There's immature and then there's mature. So example, like maximizer is my top 5 strength. Maximizer is taking something and making it better. or improving it or pushing it. So, the music knob, for the speaker, we want it to go to 11, right? So an immature maximizer doesn't know when we don't need to go to 11. 7's enough. A mature maximizer knows that 7's enough. So in an immature communication, doesn't know when to stop talking. It doesn't know when to stop emailing, stop texting. In a mature communication, would know to be patient, wait your turn, communicate effectively, but not over communicate, how to communicate in an appropriate way that gets the message that is needed to the person that needs it, but keep that at bay, more being effective and intentional than volume. So you'll have all of these. So even if you have the exact same talent themes as someone else, they could be immature and mature, and they can be maturing, which is one of the things we like to say, because we don't really have a measurement of what is a completely mature talent theme and strength. So we're all maturing, appropriately for where we are. So that's one of the things that I love about Gallup and CliftonStrengths, is that it really meets people where they are, and it allows them to become more aware of themselves. And there's actually a tool and a process that Gallup developed. So this isn't just pie in the sky, you're this, do that. They've developed a tool called Name It, Claim It, and Aim It, that actually it's a worksheet that allows you to name. You have a challenge, a goal, or a situation that you want to address with your talent themes and strengths, and you look at your top 10 or top 5, and you choose 3 that you want to use to lean into to help you with this challenge. And then you identify the components of the 3 strengths that you chose that are going to help you to achieve it. That's to claim it. You have an awareness of what that strength is. And then you take those 3 strengths and you aim it. You actually come up with action steps, that are measurable in time. They have time constraints to address this challenge. And you can use this worksheet every single day or any type of challenge. And what's fun about it is, let's say Christine and I are working on one project. She can do her name it, claim it, aim it sheet, and I can do mine. We can say, this is what I'm bringing to this project. And then she'll say, this is what I'm bringing to this project. And you'll see it can really support each other. So we'll actually have different projects in the workplace, and we'll actually look which themes or which people can bring their themes to support this in a better way. Because if you have something, you don't want all strategics, you don't want all influencers. I have high influence. 6 out of my top 10 are influencing. We'll just forget all the details of the party. We'll invite everybody, and people will be great. We'll be great hosts. But all of the the music, the food, then you also have to have the napkins, the silverware, and also the tablecloths and the lighting and the photography. It goes on and on. So that is not typically the influencing strength. So having someone on my team that's going to have all of the more executing strengths to help follow through with that stuff is vitally important. And it's the same thing on a landscape crew. You're going to have people that are really detailed orientated, and you're going to have other people that have more of a bigger picture. So they see the whole job before you start. And there's other people that are going to put that, edge stone in perfectly, the next one perfectly. And that's your high achiever. So, but you can't have everyone who doesn't see the job. They only see the stone. We need people on our team that have the bigger vision and that real eye for detail.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, as you were talking about that, some of the stonework that I've seen at, landscape companies, and how just beautiful it is, and the amount of detail that's gone into it. And, and you look at it, and we've talked to some of the owners that have shared some of this stonework, and we go, oh my goodness, like, how long did that take? And what was the process? And he's like, oh no, this guy's really good. He did this by hand, and he did this, and he did this. And then and our profit margin was like, this high. And it was just this super phenomenal profit margin. And it was just amazing to me, because it tied the efficiency of, his company and what they do, their service that they provide, with the people he's hiring and putting in those roles based off of their strengths and their talents and their skills. And I was like, yeah, this is just, it's the perfect recipe, right? It's like, it's the perfect storm, right? To produce this high profit margin and get this beautiful product. And I think that's another reason why I love the strengths assessment and leading from your strengths concept, is because we don't always know who is that person we need to hire and what are the skills and talents that we need to look for in these people to fill these roles in our company. And every role is different. An office manager that you're hiring in your company, Steve, is going to be a little bit different than an office manager, that one of your professional associates is hiring in a completely different state, completely different location and demographic. So it's good to know, based off of your company's values and the services that you provide, who do we need on our team and what strengths are we looking for these individuals? Because you'll have more success in hiring and long-term retention if you not only lead from people's strengths, but you hire them as well with their strengths in mind.
Yeah, and profitability really is why I love the CliftonStrengths so much, because it just allows us to be so much more profitable, because we know that a team member that is focused in strengths is 6 times more effective than someone who's not focused in their strengths. So we have A players, right? Everyone wants to be an A player. We want to hire A players. What that really is aiming people's strengths and talents to allow them to show up with that energy and in their natural talent themes. So you have higher profitability because people are doing what really gives them energy, and actually becomes easy. Like telling me, okay, you have to go out and see people and talk to people all day, every day. That's my strength, right? Go sell, go on 600 appointments a year. I'm all about that. I don't want to be creating reports. I don't want to do Excel sheets. That's not my strength. Other people, they love Excel sheets. They love reports. They knock it out of the park. They think of things to put in there that add value that I would have never even considered. But when we get if you have mowing crews and lawn techs, right, we want them to have certain skills and strengths and talents, because you have high executing with analytical, right? So analytical is really the talent theme for what's true, right? They want to know what the facts are, what's true. It's not necessarily the number crunching. It's the truth. The numbers give you truth, but that's your straight line. People with high discipline, they're the ones that can cut beautiful patterns into lawns, right? When they're spreading the fertilizer, they get the perfect spread. That discipline, they're analytical. What's true? I have to do this to achieve that result. So we're in influencing. They are not even plugged into that, right? And so it's kind of like the landscape owner goes out, he sees the landscape done before he's even drawing it. He can talk to the customer. The stonework's going to go here, and your new, it's not even a sidewalk. It's an entryway, right? Your new entrance is going to go here, and the patio is going to go there. And how many people are going to be at this party? Okay, we need seating, and we need a table. And let's get the grill off the patio so we're not smoking people out. And we need transition zones, so we need all this area, and how many times a year, what type of party is it going to be? Okay, it's going to be in the summer. Let's get some lighting out here so we can enjoy the night a little bit longer. Now, they're not going to know all the details of how to do all that work physically, but they can see it and they can express that and produce an estimate and sell it. And then they need that person that has the executing and the strategic to implement that. And that is really what makes, when you see companies that are on a growth pattern, usually they have someone. Now, if you have high executing, you can also sell it. If you have high strategic, you can also sell it. It doesn't have to be influencing, but that strategic and executing is going to talk more about how they're going to install the base. They're going to talk about more about the product. They're going to talk about what's true about the project. It needs to be this big because you have that many people there. So they're going to be more specific with the details and the numbers. So that's a, different way to sell. It's super effective. My landscape manager, he is relationship executing, and he has a great close ratio and does a great job. So we can all sell with our natural talent themes. We just have to be aware of what they are, lean into them, and let them show up and serve our clients and ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that being more aware of other people's talents, it helps us as the leaders support them in realizing, what their true skills and strengths are and step into their best self. Because, let's be honest here. We're not always kind to ourselves. We don't always see the best side of who we are and really step into that. So understanding your team's strengths as a leader allows you to acknowledge them, nurture them, and help them see what their best self is and acknowledge that. And that's very energizing, right? Like that's motivating. You're mentoring your people in the right way with this positive influence and even positive feedback.
And, one of the other parts of the Clifton Strength Assessment is you have this incredibly high retention rate for companies that do that with your team members, because they've probably most likely never worked anywhere where they've been recognized for their natural talents and strengths, and recognized and then honored and then actually aimed it and aligned it with what the company is going to do and offer their clients. So, you have this incredible retention rate because people go home, they're not exhausted. They're not complaining about their job to everybody that will listen, especially their family. And we can only complain about our jobs so long for so many years. And you just exhaust people. But when you're living and working in your strengths, you're not complaining about it. It becomes exciting. Have you ever talked to someone that's excited about work? It's usually because it aligns with their strengths.
Yeah, we've talked about, strengths-based leadership in several of our groups with several business owners, in our coaching programs. And some of them approach it to where they're like, this is amazing. How do I do it? And then others approach it and they're like, this is amazing. And this sounds really hard. And so we've gotten, feedback. And I was one of those ones who I was like, this is amazing. And it sounds like a lot of work was my first thought. But then the more I connected with my strengths and then started realizing my team's strengths, I realized this isn't going to happen overnight, right? It's something just like with any other business practice that we have to take on. And it's just, baby steps, right? Slow steps of implementing something. And I've talked about this before in, championing change is it takes 2 years, at least, and you call it that, 1,000 days and something really happens, right? So to adopt a new process, to really implement something in your business, whether it's a software, it's a way that you're leading your team, it's a training program, it's whatever it is, it's typically 2 to 3 years, or as you call it, Steve, the 1,000-day development, right? To really adopt it, implement it, have it down to where like everybody, like they know it like the back of their hand. So this is another one of those things that, and, I just want to be real with people. When you are starting to get into Clifton Strengths, it is a long game. You will learn a ton about yourself as a leader, as a business owner, as a person, a friend, a brother, sister, spouse, whatever, however you show up in life, you are going to learn so much about yourself. And you have the opportunity of learning so much about your team to where management and leadership is no longer hard. Communication and connectivity is no longer hard. Execution is no longer hard. And it's just continuing to develop that strengths-based approach leadership.
Yeah, being aware of other people's and our own natural talent themes and strengths. It's kind of like learning the magic tricks. You're watching a magic show and now they show you. You're like, oh, that's so simple. I couldn't figure it out sitting way back here. But once you know it, you don't unknow it. But it really helps us to support our team and ourselves. And like, we are hard on ourselves. Why can't I do this? I'll try harder. And it's just you're not going to do it. Like, I have high communication. When I was in school, it was always, high activators, my number one, which is go. to get up and go to start, right? So you take activator and communication and you tell that person to sit down and shut up. Be quiet, be still. It's impossible. Well, so it's that constant fighting with that natural talent themes and skills with an unrealistic expectation, because most teachers are going to be learners, analytical, strategic. So they will sit there with a book for 4 hours and read and not say a word. And that might be the best Sunday. For most entrepreneurs, they have a higher activity level. They have a higher communication level. I'm not saying they don't like to read. I'm just saying that might not be the best day. They want to create and do stuff and move and talk. So it's a little bit of a different person. So if you have that kind of one strength managing another strength and getting frustrated, it's usually a lack of strength awareness. So we want to respect all the strengths and really honor and support them, but the awareness is where it starts. And it is a little secret. Like if you have the awareness of your team's strengths, it takes the mystery out of managing, because you're like, yes, this person can do that. And it's not that they can't do that job. It's like, how do we align their strengths to achieve the goal of that job, right? Like my bookkeeper that we have, she has high input, high context, which is history. Input is collecting things, all the data. So that helps a bookkeeper. If you had a high influencing person as your bookkeeper, they might miss certain things. They might not. If they have strategic and input collected in with their influencing, they might get all those details. So it really is looking at their assessment and seeing what they have. Now, you don't have to do this alone. I work with teams. I work with companies. I'm going to be going out to Nebraska to do an in-person training with a company later this week. I've been to Tennessee. I've been to Alabama to work with companies, New York. So I do work in person, but we also do it over Zoom. I work with people and their teams, and we do an unpacking of their strength assessment. And then we work on the name it, claim it, name it program and process to get their team aligned to their mission, vision, and purpose.
Yeah. And this is another thing I would say, don't go at it alone. I definitely had people in my circle, other entrepreneurs and business owners that were diving into the strengths-based leadership. So that gave me my platform to really understand it. And there's a few times it did get stalled out because I didn't have the support that I needed. But it was something that over the years, Steve and I continued to talk about and dive into. And then he got certified as a strengths coach. And that definitely has helped with the foundation in my company in implementing and sharing the strengths-based approach. And so that was one of the things that we did, was we developed a couple workshops that business owners can take along with their team that support them in this strengths-based approach. And it outlines the level 1 is the assessment. You understand, your top 5 and your top 10. And then it goes through the process like Steve was talking about with the name it, aim it, claim it. And then that goal setting of how they can really leverage their strengths and whatever goal that they're working on. So it gives everybody in the workshop some really great tools to lean into strengths leadership and also have a deeper understanding and appreciation of their strengths. So that's something we wanted to share with you all. We are launching our level 1, strengths-based leadership program this year, April 23rd. So we're offering it again. And we have a special offer for all of our listeners where we are going to share with you. It's a special promo code. So if you look in the show notes, you will see the Maximize Your Potential Strengths-Based Leadership Experience Level 1 workshop link. You can click on that. And if you use the code MAX, that's MAX, like maximizing. So MAX 300, that will give you a $300 savings for your early bird sign up on this program. And then in addition to that, if you sign up anybody on your team, once one person is signed up, each additional team member is 50% savings. So you'll get a 50% savings on each one, because the power of more than one person knowing about strengths-based leadership and then being able to share that. The opportunity there is endless. So hopefully we will see some of you in our workshop and learn more about strengths.
Yeah, I'd love for you to join us. It's so powerful. It's the most engaging workshop that I teach. People just love it. They always want to stay late and talk more about it. And I'm involved in Gallup and CliftonStrengths on a daily basis, whether it's through their coaching program, their Call to Coach program, Facebook, emails. It's always in a conversation with me, with Gallup, CliftonStrengths, other companies. So, going on your own, you can get something out of it, but you'll miss a lot. You'll probably miss about 75 to 80% of the other resources that are available. Plus, just having conversations about it and sharing is really a powerful lesson, especially for any leadership and management who are going to be managing people who don't exactly match up to their strength talent. It helps us to understand how to understand them and also manage them and help them help us to achieve the mission, vision, and purpose of our company.
Yeah, it is the strengths-based leadership. It will completely change the leadership style in your company. It changes the culture. And it really, I have to say, because it's managing people and leadership was not something I love to do, but now it makes it so much easier. So, from somebody who's high executing, high strategic, I do have some peopling in there, but it's not a lot of peopling. So I always say there's only so many people that I like. This has helped me a lot as a leader to get the right people on my team and go get the work done without me having to have too much involvement. So it has changed the culture and the leadership in our company completely.
Yes, and it will help you understand why some people start things and don't follow through, why some people never start things but are great team members, why some people want to be support people and not the leader, why other people want to communicate one way and not the other way. So it really helps us all to understand each other and make so much more progress faster. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I look forward to working with you. I hope we've been helpful today. If you have any questions, reach out to us, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.